Good evening, everyone. And just to make sure everybody heard that, this meeting is being recorded. So in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting virtually. The Public Works Commission is conducting this meeting on April 13th, 2022 at 4 p.m. on a Zoom platform in accordance with the town's policy directive and guidelines issued on April 1st, 2020 and amended on May 7th. I ask that all Public Works Commissioners, town staff, and presenters activate their video and mute their microphone unless they have something to say or are participating in committee dialogue. For members of the public, when I open the meeting to public comment, in order to be recognized, please use the raise your hand option on Zoom or *9 if you're on a phone, or raise your hand if you're on video. If you are recognized, please state your name and address for us for the record. And again, this meeting is being recorded and will be available for viewing later on the town website. To start our meeting, we'll call to order. I, Jeff Vassar, hereby call this meeting to order. All commission votes will be taken via roll call, and we will start with an attendance roll call of commissioners. When I announce your name, please reply. I should just tape this and run it over and over every day. So if you're in attendance, please reply. David DeLong, we know is excused. Andrea Solomon.
Here.
James Terry.
Here.
Casey Winslow.
Here.
Jeff Vassar here. Next item is review and approval of our meeting minutes from March 1st, 2022. I think all the commissioners got a copy. Are there any comments?
There was just one small change that I mentioned to Anna. It's on page 6, and it's where it talks about Article 28. Article 28 is not a citizen petition, so we crossed those words off. And with that change, I recommend, or I move that we approve the minutes of March 1st, 2022.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
Any additional comment? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Andrea Solomon,
Aye.
Casey Winslow,
Aye.
Jim Terry,
Aye.
Jeff Vassar, aye. So next item of business is a review of our calendar, which we tend to do quickly at every meeting. Alan?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Just a quick review of the calendar. We have the next scheduled event is really not a formal meeting. It is the actual town meeting scheduled for May 1st in the Concord Carlisle High School Gymnasium. Sometimes there is a meeting that we would have of the commission beforehand, but there's no reason to schedule such. So it's literally just an awareness that if you plan on attending, that'll be May 1st. The next Public Works Commission meeting will be May 11th. We are looking to have a water sewer rate hearing at the time. I think we are also just tentatively scheduling an update for the commission on the roads program. We think once we go through the budget cycle, there's been a lot of interest and activity on that. So we'll probably bring the commission up to speed on the roads program. Those are two of the items that were sort of flagged for May. And then in June, we're looking at a solid waste recycling rate hearing at that point. And if things go smoothly, we may have the summer off up until September. We'll see how things go, but that's the routine. If we can hold to it, we will. So that's sort of the look ahead for now.
Thank you, Alan. While we're on the schedule, a couple things for our May 11th meeting. One, there's a couple action items in addition to what Alan mentioned. But one is we had tried to hold a meeting in person a few months ago, and then there was a resurgence. And I would like to see if the commissioners are interested in having an in-person meeting in May. Now, Jim says yes.
I would come to that.
Andrea says yes. I say
Yes,
yes. So we got a quorum, and Casey,
Yes, I'd
we would
like that.
we would like you there because it's unfortunately going to be your last meeting with us. So we get to send you off in person. Is that
I
correct?
actually thought I had another year. That's so funny.
Well,
We hope.
okay, my notes in front of me, my crib notes say
I could be
this will
wrong
be
though.
your
I mean,
last meeting, but if
time
you're with us
flies when you're
another
having
year,
fun.
fantastic.
If anybody's listening, Casey says the time flies by as a commissioner. Just
Okay.
saying.
And then we'll also be electing a new chair and vice chair at our next meeting. So we'll plan on that, Anna, for our next meeting then. Next item is a public hearing on the Pond Street water main extension, and I will turn it back to Alan again.
Okay, very good. I'll do just a quick introduction because some relatively new commission members and who haven't gone through this water main extension process before. But just to let you know, there is a process in place anytime a property intends to create frontage to allow for water and or sewer service. The process involves a public hearing. If it's within a public way, if it's relating to a subdivision project, that is generally heard. There's a public hearing, but it would be through the subdivision rules and regulations. So if an applicant or proponent of water main extensions bundled into the subdivision rules and regs, staff provides comment, and only if there's an exception to our design standards would they come before the Public Works Commission. In this case, this project you're about to get introduced to provides a good opportunity to talk about both processes, but we're here tonight to talk about a extension on Pond Street to create frontage to one lot. I will turn it over to Jeff Morosky, the Water Sewer Superintendent, to give us a little bit of an overview of this project and introduce the applicants for this as well.
Alan, should we open the hearing before we?
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. And then you go through the formal process as a hearing. Thank you, Jim.
I move that we open the public hearing regarding the Pond Street water main extension.
I second.
Thank you. You must have read my lips. We have a second. Any discussion? We'll take a vote. Andrea Solomon,
Aye.
James Terry,
Aye.
Casey Winslow,
Aye.
Jeff Fasser, aye. Thank you, Jim, for the reminder.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Thank you, members of the commission. I'm Jeff Morosky. I'm the Water and Sewer Superintendent. In attendance at tonight's meeting is also the applicant, Mr. Mark White, representing AWMW LLC, and also consulting engineer representative Molly Obendorf with Stamsky and McNary. As Alan alluded to, the applicant has had a property parcel that's been under development on Pond Street, which is a public right-of-way. Unfortunately, the water main does not extend out to the frontage of that parcel. So water was not able to be provided according to our rules and regulations. And this is addressed, of course, in Article 2, Section 2, availability of service. So what's been put forward in the application is an extension of approximately 110 feet of 8-inch ductile iron water main. This main extension will not reach the full frontage of the parcel, but it will stop about 25 feet of the end of the parcel frontage on Pond Street. And that was amenable to Water and Sewer Division. Features of this water main will include some offset bends to create a better alignment of the water main, as well as new valving and an added hydrant at the end of the extension line. This will provide extra features that will allow us to maintain this extension, and it'll also provide good means to conduct a test on the newly installed water main extension through the valving that'll be installed as a part of this. Alan did mention that this is also the intended first step of a two-step process. The second step is involved with a subdivision review application with the Division of Planning and Land Management. The sky blue shaded area, that's actually the water main extension that the applicant is here for the hearing tonight. The cyan colored area, that's what's being designated as phase 2 of the applicant's intended improvements. I should note that both Sunnyside Lane and the unnamed way to the north or to the top side of the drawing are both private ways. As I said before, Pond Street is a public right of way. So the matter that's before subdivision review and the Planning and Land Development Department is a process that the Water and Sewer Division has the ability to comment on as it moves through the process with planning. I think I've touched on most of the features. There was a certified mailing that was done, and the mailing receipts were provided to the town. Most, but not all, of the green card receipts have come back. The submission was reviewed by both the Water and Sewer Division and also Engineering, and it was the joint recommendations that the not only the hearing be opened, but the application be accepted and approved. With that, I would entertain any questions that the commission may have with respect to the process, or if the commission members have any questions specific to the project, I would defer those to the applicant and the applicant's engineer.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff. Before I open it up for commission questions or discussion, Alan, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, the only other additional aspect is we're sensitive to the layout and impacts within the right of way, inclusive of shade trees and that sort of thing. And that was part of the consideration, as Jeff mentioned, this bump out, where we jogged the water main was deliberately to try and minimize impact on shade trees, again, and kind of consistent with how we operate. And I know Jeff had conferred with the Director of Natural Resources also to kind of look at the entire project in scope to see how the layout might work for phase 2 as well. But again, the reason it's stopping short of the property line, and again, I'll point out by kind of policy, anytime there's an extension, it usually is required to go to the end of the property. The purpose of that is for the next interested party. Sometimes it's a patchwork of extensions. They can come back and request to get service, and they don't have to deal with the frontage or all that extra work, in front of someone else's property. So that policy, we're recommending it stop short, primarily so that the impacts on the wetlands can be addressed through the subdivision rules and regs process. So.
And this is Anna Trout. I just want to verify that the public hearing has been advertised in the Concord Journal.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for pointing out the wetlands, Alan. That is the 100-foot buffer is the dotted line.
That's correct, right here. Yep.
So I'm not opposed to this. It looks like we could have gone further and stayed out of that 100-foot buffer.
Jeff, you want to speak to the specifics there?
Well, not just the buffer zone, but also the existing trees.
Okay,
What's presented on the plan is the most advantageous and beneficial in terms of being the least impactful
okay,
to trees. And of course, the community does have sensitivity to removing trees.
great, great. Thank you for that explanation, Jeff. I appreciate it. Any comments or discussion by commission members? Yes, Jim.
Yeah, is there sewerage in the area or is it on-site septic availability? I mean, does sewer go down Pond Street?
I can speak to that. For the record, Molly Obendorf with Stamsky McNary, representing Mark White with AWMW. All the lots, some of the lots are on sewer, but the lots that are in question at 49 Pond there, the one that has frontage on the new extension is a private on-site septic system.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner have comment or questions? I'm not seeing any. Anybody from the public that would like to comment or ask a question? And I'm not, Anna, help me out on this. I'm not sure I'm seeing everybody on my screen. I think I am. If anybody from the public have a comment or question?
Mark, if you'd like to add anything, this would be a good opportunity.
I think, yeah, I don't have any further comment unless someone has a question.
Okay, thank you.
Mark White, AWMW, 233 Independence Road.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
If I don't see anyone asking to be heard.
Thank you very much. If there's no more discussion, would anybody like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Casey, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
Second. Any additional comment? If none, I'll take a roll call. Andrea Solomon,
Aye.
James Terry,
aye.
Casey Winslow,
Aye.
Jeff Fasser. Aye. So now we have this request ahead of us or in front of us. Would anybody like to make a motion on the request that's in front of us?
Yes, I move that we approve the water main extension along Pine Street as detailed on a plan entitled Water Main Extension Phase 1 in Concord, Massachusetts, dated May 20th, 2021, and revised April 5th, 2022, prepared by George Dimakaros, PE of Stamsky and McNary, Inc. And I apologize for botching his name.
How do you do, Molly?
Good for a first try, Dimakarakis.
Is there a
Hard-
second?
it's a
I've
hard one
known
to get
George
through.
for 10 years and I still can't pronounce it.
Just point of correction, Jim, I think you said Pine Street, not Pond Street.
Okay,
Just to be
say
clear.
thank you. Pond Street.
I'll second that.
Okay, and then I'll take additional comments. Jeff, you had your hand up?
I did want to offer up one more thing. I don't think the town has gone through a water main extension since the commission has gone to virtual meetings. In the past, normally the applicant would be providing a Mylar at the meeting hearing so that the plan could be endorsed by both the commission as well as from the town engineer. So in
Okay,
this case, we're asking the applicant to provide a Mylar of the plan, and we'll address the execution signatures of both a representative of the commission as well as the town engineer.
thank you, Jeff. I can make it down there tomorrow if that works for you or everybody else. So just let me know if you would like me to stop by tomorrow. Okay, so we have a motion and it's been seconded, and I don't see any other discussion, any other hands being raised, so we'll take a roll call. Casey Winslow,
Aye.
Andrea Solomon,
Aye.
Jim Terry,
Aye.
Jeff Fasser. Aye. I was just mixing it up, see if everybody was paying attention. You did well. So I think we're done with that one.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark and Molly, for being here. Snow maintenance policy. It looks like Steve's going to talk about this unless, Alan, you want to kick anything off.
No, it's just interesting that this policy has been adopted since 1964, and the commission was brought to the commission's attention. We were dealing with conditions of roads in private ways that were in disrepair, and we had a conversation about what to do about, kind of outreach and ensuring that we could continue to maintain these. And there's certain provisions that are required for the town to continue to provide this service. Ironically, this project, the discussion was raised with the improvement on Sunnyside Lane, which is going to be altered as part of this subdivision process. So it raised a new question for staff, and one we thought, as far as precedent, we bring before the Public Works Commission for their guidance on this. So with that, Steve Dukran, town engineer, you let me to bring up that plan for you.
Yeah, that will help, Alan.
Okay.
Yes, okay, thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Stephen Dukran, town engineer. What you have before you is a plan of Sunnyside Lane. And if you can see the gray in the background, that shows the existing roadway. It's about 441 feet long. And the orange, if that's the color you're seeing, shows where the new road will be. It will be realigned, given a uniform width, and then extended about 108 feet to the north. Included at the end of it is a hammerhead for turning around. So the issue at hand is, does this extension mean that the town has to continue to provide the plowing services as required by the policy from 1964 that Alan mentioned? So it's the additional length of 108, as well as the changes. The road is going to be paved. And so we responded to, without knowing the full answers to some of these questions, when we reviewed the subdivision plan, we provided a response to the developer that they will have to continue to, they'll have to plow the new road or bring this to your board to make a determination of whether plowing should be continued. We continued to research the issue and could not find any real clarification on the original approval, whether it applied only to the original road, 440 feet, or whether it applied to the entire length of the road when it's laid out back then. If we think about the intent of the law, it means that at the time you're trying to provide plowing for an existing road. So our conclusion is that we believe that the plowing services were to be provided to the road that was built at the time. However, we have to take into consideration some other factors and criteria. The fact that the developer is realigning the road to make it a uniform alignment along within the right of way, giving it a uniform width, paving it, providing a turnaround that doesn't exist today. All of these are going to reduce the burden that Public Works has in plowing the existing street, making it more efficient, reducing the impact to the maintenance of their plows and other equipment. And the other consideration is that there are existing abutters who received the benefit already. So should you just require the new abutters, the 4 new homes when it's all built, to plow their section? And that's not practical. So we are making a recommendation that the commission sees that this is, this altered street be continued to be receive the services from the town for snow and ice removal. And, but we'd like to have a couple of conditions put in place. One, that all owners would keep the road in a well-maintained condition. And that's a big issue. Those members who were here a couple years ago would remember we were faced with having to deal with this and other streets that were in poor condition and making it difficult for us to conduct our winter operations. And the second condition would be to sign a hold harmless agreement. And both of these are required by the 1964 criteria. These conditions can also be made as a planning board approval stipulation as well. Right.
Is that it, Stephen?
Yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, I can have answer.
So with that, hold on one second. Are there any questions, comments by the commission members?
So would it also make sense to have some kind of a time frame on this, or is this in perpetuity, or did you discuss that?
Casey, what's interesting is with the policy, it was sort of adopted by the town in 1964, implemented through the Public Works Commission. There is no sunset, but it does talk about, kind of alteration of, and that's where this is certainly being altered. But in this particular situation, it seems to be, for some improvement with the condition of the way. It'll be paved, not gravel. In fact, the developer was responsible for sort of smoothing the way so it could be maintained all winter, without issue. And it really is sort of in perpetuity as it's framed. So, there wouldn't be a sunset that we'd envision for this.
So is it setting a precedent in terms of, is this the first one? Because I know there's a bunch of these smaller streets in Concord that are mostly gravel or stone dust or whatever you want, and they're not paved, and that we are maintaining, correct? That, I mean, there's quite a few in the White Pond area. There's some in this area. There's a few of them. And it just makes me wonder, so does that going forward, if these other roads become paved, are we just going down this road of taking care of any of these roads that are improved down the road?
So it's exactly why we're bringing it to the commission. And when I kind of share the screen, again, I'm just going to show you the basis of this is from, 1964 here. And this is the provisions that as long as those roads met these conditions and they were identified at the time, the town would provide snow and ice removal. And so the precedent we're talking about is with alteration. This is fairly measured. It's pretty well defined in how this was presented. And I don't think it sort of puts us in a position of an obligation if a road were substantially changed or modified, that the same consideration could be or would be offered. But given the fact that it's a very modest extension, there's improvements with alignment, improvements of the condition of the road to maintain. We seem to think it sort of kind of continued to meet the original intent.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like it's certainly going to be better on the plows and better for the safety of the drivers and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Jim, I believe you had your hand up, Jim, and then we'll get to you, Mark, but I want to do the commissioners first.
Yeah, I drove down Sunnyside yesterday, and the fact that the developer has indicated that he's going to pave the road will make it amazingly improved. The road is, one of the questions I was going to ask Alan was, would we continue to do snow and ice removal with the condition of the road as it is today? I think it's pretty poor. And, that's maybe a discussion that we should have at another meeting for all the other roads that we do our plowing. I know you've you've sent out communications to some of the towns where, or some of the roads where the conditions are what I would describe as poor, and saying that we would need to have them upgraded. But this, in fact, takes care of that, at least for the interim. Who knows how long the pavement will last, but it will be certainly an improvement over what the conditions are for the residents now. So
Thank
I'm
you, Jim.
in support of this.
That does bring up a question, though. So down the road, if the road needs repairs, if they're not collecting any HOA dues or anything like that, then who does repair it or take care of it or replace it someday?
So this is a policy issue that we teased out earlier, when we talked about our inability to go to some of these roads and maintain them in existing conditions. And these are generally dirt roads. I will say dirt roads have ephemeral condition. They ebb and flow depending on maintenance, and they can be in really bad shape. And in this case, we probably couldn't have maintained it unless it was smoothed out for the last winter, and it was. So I think it speaks to the broader issue, and something we'll probably be talking more about what happens with private ways in Concord, and how should the town be engaged in supporting or not any improvements. But it's clear that the snow and ice removal policy is in place. It's certainly established, and there are criteria in order to continue that service.
Right. So maybe it's just a discussion for another day, but like repairing that road, who's going to pay for it if they don't have a kitty?
Today, it's ultimately the abutters. That's how a private way would work.
Okay, thank you.
Andrea, do you have any questions or comments? Okay, so I have a question. Alan and Stephen, you've talked about right now we do maintain the road, we plow it and deal with the ice. So my question is, do we currently sand and or salt the roadway if it's needed?
It would be full treatment to make it.
Currently, no, before it's paved, do we currently do that?
I'd have to ask Aaron McCloskey. He might have a better sense of ongoing operations. Aaron, are you available? Can you speak to that?
Yes, currently we do plow and de-ice the roadway. We apply road salt. We
Okay,
do not apply any road sand.
okay. So with it being paved, the runoff is going to increase, and I don't know if the paving includes any stormwater control, because we're close to that, still close to that wetlands. That's my concern, is if we de-ice, what's going to happen with the salt, because the runoff will increase.
Steve Duker, do you want to take care of the drainage issues and how that's reviewed?
Actually, I was going to pass that over to Stamsky, the McNary
Okay.
designers, and they have to meet the criteria for planning board approval.
Yeah, I can speak to that for the record. Molly Bendorf with Stamsky McNary. So there is a drainage design for the road. It's cross sloped, meaning it's super elevated. So it's pitched from one side of the road to the other. And then the side that it's pitched to has a grass swale, basically, and a series of area drains that,
Okay.
capture any runoff or anything that were to go in. And then that eventually discharges into an infiltration basin. So there's significant treatment. And I'm sure, NRC might have, comment about treatment for the roadway, salt versus, sand or whatnot, but there is drainage for the roadway and.
Great. Mark, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so there will be a homeowners association. There's currently one right now that's not really that well adhered to. I've been meeting with all the residents out there, and we're in agreement to come up with a more formalized legal homeowners association that we are currently drafting. I'm in agreement with the conditions that Steve had mentioned. And one thing that hasn't been talked about, which was part of the criteria from the selectmen back in '64, is that it's open to the public. So not only is Sunnyside Lane open to the public, but it also provides the public with access to town-owned land that's adjacent to Sunnyside, as well as trail easements into Warner's Pond, which the town is currently trying to clean up and make more,
Yep.
have the public use it a little more.
Thank you, Mark. If there are any comments or questions from anybody from the public?
Jeff,
Yes, Jim.
a question about the hold harmless. What happens if not every resident signs the hold harmless agreement? Does that mean that we won't plow?
That is a very good question. I can tell you from the policy from 64, there is no active monitoring or would be the word refreshing of that agreement. Is there's property transfers and that sort of thing. So I think we're looking at this as an opportunity to sort of revisit that question. And Jim, I don't have the answer. Steve, I don't know if you've seen anything that would say it was a majority or not. I don't have the answer at this point. Steve, did you see
No.
anything in your review?
No, there isn't anything that, discusses the extent of that. I would think it's, if the homeowners association is being organized and made more official, that could be a requirement prior to the developer getting full approval or to get a, like, for instance, a building permit.
I will also say, Jim, that we received, I think, 3 emails in support of ongoing, town maintenance. We have not heard any opposition.
I mean, I think it is an important consideration for all of the private roads that we plow. So it's again, we ought to put this on a future
Yep.
discussion.
Yeah, I agree. Very good point, Jim. I think it would be good for future discussion. It might be helpful to talk to town council ahead of time. Maybe there's another mechanism, but and if something was placed on a deed, then they know with the transfer of property, they would have to sign this hold harmless if they take ownership of the property. But there may be another way of doing that. Maybe council can advise us on that, because I think, Jim, it's a very good point. Everybody needs to sign on, in my opinion, but we'll discuss it at a future meeting.
Jeff, you have Mr. White and Nancy Nelson asking to be acknowledged.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't.
I think Mark,
I'm
was
new
all
to
set.
this. I'm new to this Zoom thing.
Okay, no problem. Nancy, yes.
I just want to clarify, this is Sunnyside that comes out on Lexington Road, right? I think, no, okay, so it's a different section.
Lexington Road is Shady Side, not Sunnyside. It's the opposite.
Oh, sorry. I will never get that right. Okay, sorry.
And for the record, Nancy, if you could just state your address.
1695 Lowell Road in Concord.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry for that.
Any other questions from anybody? With seeing none, do I have a motion on this item that's ahead of us, in front of us? I mean, keep saying ahead, in front of us.
Sure. I move that the changes in the aggregate to Sunnyside Lane proposed by AWMW LLC in its subdivision application are not material enough to render the extended Sunnyside Lane ineligible for snow and ice removal under the 1964 policy. In addition, property owners are to keep the road in a well-maintained condition and sign a hold harmless agreement stipulated in criteria 7 of the policy.
Wow.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any other last minute comments? Not, we'll take a roll call. Jim Terry,
Aye.
Casey Winslow,
Aye.
Andrea Solomon,
Aye.
Jeff Vassar, aye. Thank you all. Thank you for the information from our 2 guests and from Stephen also. We'll now go on to our next agenda item, which is town meeting
Thank
preparation.
you for your time.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thanks for your
Yep,
time.
you're welcome. Town meeting preparation. Back to Mr. Cathcart to walk us through all the exciting things we're going to have on the town meeting warrant.
Okay, I'll refer to the memo. I don't have any visuals to share, so this is just a conversation, an opportunity to formalize, the position of the Public Works Commission on those articles that, we had discussed or had been flagged of interest. I would say, you all were provided with this, the full document. Sorry, it's not coming in. It's blurred, but it's your opportunity to, weigh in as a commission, not as an individual, and just to provide some guidance. There's sort of formal protocols that I myself am learning at the same time. While I've been to many town meetings, I haven't been to a lot where I've had to manage or support the commission. So for, support here, it's important to understand that there are a number of articles that directly relate to public works, where, we talk, where the origin of them are, through staff and public works with support of the Public Works Commission. These are generally routine. They're actually sponsored through the town manager's office. But with that said, they get put on a consent calendar. And because they're relatively routine, they get put on a consent calendar. And we've talked about them. And they were Article 28, which authorizes expenditures of revolving funds. That's in essence money that's collected through the street opening permit, can be used, through and by engineering. It's dedicated fund, and it's available for expenses incurred to support that program. We have Article 40, solid waste disposal fund expenditures. That's in essence our trash recycling curbside program, which is an enterprise fund. So money that's received can be spent towards the support of that program. We have Article 41, sewer system expenditures. Again, the user fees and special service fees through the sewer, collected through the sewer division, can be spent towards related operating capital expenses. We have the sewer improvement fund expenditures. Those are the fees that are collected for the expansion of sewer capacity, which can be used for expenditures relating to expanding plant. We use that for I&I removal as well to maintain our capacity at the wastewater treatment plant. And then we have Article 43, that's the water system expenditures. And again, as an enterprise, user fees, special service fees that are collected can be spent in support of those programs. We've talked about those at length in the past. Those would be put on the consent calendar. If there are 10 participants at town meeting who decide they would like to have them pulled, they could be. And so it's important to, in the event that someone wanted to know more about the water fund or had a specific question they want to call out, they may pull that. And what we need to do today, as far as housekeeping, is just identify a commissioner for those each respective article who would be present and able to report to town meeting with support of a slide deck that we'd offer. It's a fairly straightforward, it's a very limited report, but we like to assign those to various commissioners, and then staff would work with them if it was pulled. It's unusual. There's nothing controversial in our budgets, but it could happen. And so the protocol would be a commissioner would speak to the legislative body to give them a brief overview and then answer any questions, and staff would be there depending on what the questions were to help. So first order of business is to identify commissioners who would be willing and able to support or present those articles.
Before we get into that, I'll give people time to think about it. You know,
Yeah.
we'll have probably a plethora of volunteers here. I know we have talked about most, if not all of these previously, Alan. Has anything changed since we talked about them at previous meetings?
No,
Or-
nothing's changed with the language because it's so routine. I would say the following, that just as an awareness, the town meeting is scheduled to start on May 1st. That's a Sunday, with no new business taken up after 5 p.m. And these articles tend to come late in the town meeting process, so they would probably be heard on the next, so it'd be Monday, the 2nd. I believe, I'm not sure, it's 6 or 7 o'clock on that second phase. I don't believe the moderator believes it'll be more than two days. It'll be Sunday and Monday.
Okay.
It's expected to be heard.
So first of all, I plan to be there for town meeting. So, and I'm happy to speak if asked upon, but I'm also, if anybody else would like to be there, we can divide and conquer.
I plan to be there, and same thing, Jeff. Any of those articles, with a little preparation would be fine.
Okay. So
I think that-
Jim and-
That's great. And that way we
Okay.
have a backup just in case. I think that's one that works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Then there are some additional items we've discussed, articles that directly or somewhat directly impact us. One was the Scenic Roads Bylaw. Another one was turf fields, synthetic turf fields. And maybe missing another one or two. Alan, would you be willing to remind us of some of those
Sure.
we've talked about in the past? And then I'll
Yeah,
ask commissioners if they want to discuss them further.
Great. I'd say we just go in the order of the memo that I sort of called out those items, but I think first would be Article 30. That's a Scenic Roads Bylaw. I know Nancy Nelson is here to provide any, sort of information. She's been tracking this on behalf of the Historic Commission, and is sort of the bylaw is been sponsored by the Historic Commission. The Planning Board is also sponsoring this. There's been a number of different discussions, hearings, and outreach efforts, and the Commission, Public Works Commission, has had conversations. So this is, I think, our opportunity to determine how we want to proceed and weigh in. I think it's likely the general public would be interested to know what the position of the Public Works Commission is. I don't know that, but there's a good chance that question would be asked because it does affect Public Works pretty significantly. And as a reminder, the commission could take an action or agree to make an affirmative action, which is to support the language as presented. It could determine it wants to recommend no action. That means it would be opposed to the language as it's presented, or take a no position, which is basically be silent, whether it's not for or against, but it is a position. And even with no position, in any one of those, there could be a statement as well on behalf of the commission that would have to be reflective of the commission's position, not the individual. And often you'll hear active members who will go to the mic and they may say, as a resident, they can speak. You always are entitled to have your own voice, but when it comes to this commission, there needs to be sort of one voice that speaks for it. So a statement would be sort of just an opportunity for clarification, a point that needs to be made. And my understanding, it could be made on the website and with information that's presented as part of the article. And it can be presented as part of the debate on town floor, where you would just introduce yourself as representing the Public Works Commission and make a statement with whether it's affirmative, no action, no position. So that's across the board for any of these articles that we are going to talk about.
Thank you, Alan. Is there anybody from the commission who would like to open up a discussion on the Scenic Road Bylaw article? Andrea?
So this, I've learned a lot from like watching how this got discussed and approved, and mostly I'm still surprised at how so little of it was shared with Public Works. Like we were only brought in because we asked to be brought in. So there's been a lot of promises or suggestions about committees working together toward this common goal of protecting trees and stone walls, but I don't see a lot of that actually happening by including the Public Works Commission or the Public Works Department in the discussion of this. And when we've brought things up to the Historic Commission or at other meetings, they don't seem to incorporate what we're telling them about the policy that that we currently have toward those two issues, trees and stone walls. So I'm a little wary, like the process seems to be flawed in this case. This seems to be kind of a rushed, the presentation wasn't rushed. The presentation they've been giving over and over, it was sort of the avoidance of the inclusion of Public Works that really concerns me. And I don't know, I went to the planning board meeting and they were not interested really. I mean, I think they were sort of doing us a favor maybe by letting us speak at all at that meeting, but they didn't ask any questions. They weren't really interested in our position. And I don't understand that attitude, because I feel like we would have a lot of pertinent experience and information to share with them. So I don't know how to handle that at town meeting, but I'm just a little bit surprised. I continue to be surprised at the lack of involvement of the Public Works Department in moving this forward.
Thank you, Andrea. Anybody else? Jim or KC like to say anything? Not that you have to.
Did you say that Nancy was going to speak on it, or I'm sorry, maybe I missed
No.
that? No.
Well,
Okay.
I'm taking comment from commissioners first.
Questions? Okay, yeah, okay. No, I mean, I'm still kind of in the same place. I know we've talked about this a couple times, and I definitely think that the trees are, have a very well thought out and very strong process in the public hearing process for the trees. But I still feel like with the stone walls that there are some things that could fall through the cracks, and I do see this as a good opportunity to have something that Public Works can hang our hat on when we say, oh yes, no, we have a process for the stone walls and we have to go through that to make sure that they're protected. So I still feel the same way.
Okay. Jim, would you like to say anything? Again, not that you have to.
Sure, I better. I think that the Historical Commission has indicated that regular maintenance by the town or by CMLP in that, trimming trees and things like that that are necessary for the safety of the, either the electricity or the safety of pedestrians and residents who are driving down these roads will be taken care of. That work done by the Public Works Commission is not going to, or Public Works Department, excuse me, we're not going to be doing the work, will not affect the provisions, if you will, of the Scenic Roads Bylaw. I believe that the Select Board has voted to recommend affirmative action on this. The Planning Board has. Certainly the Historical Commission will, if they already haven't. So I understand the concerns that we have. I agree with Andrea that they probably haven't been heard by others in a way that is going to make this article not pass. So I think it's water over the dam, if you will. I have traversed a number of these roads on bicycle and have had chances to look, and I don't see where there are many situations where stone walls are going to be affected by a resident or owner of a property making any change to them. One concern I have in that the road, the 9 roads that are already, or that are being nominated, were laid out a long time ago. And I have asked Alan a couple of times for a couple of specific roads, what is the public way? And I don't think the Public Works Department knows for sure what the public way is. And so when situations come up, I think that engineering and other people are going to have to spend a considerable amount of time and effort to go and find historic records to see if they can find out whether a stone wall is within the public way or not within the public way. And to me, that doesn't make, well, I don't know if it makes a lot of sense or not, but that's one of the concerns that I have.
Thank you, Jim. I'm gonna speak now. I agree with what Andrea said, and I agree with what Casey said. I am leaning toward, well, I'm not opposed to the scenic road bylaw. I'll put that out there for public, but I do agree that Public Works should have been involved asked to be more engaged in the process. We are responsible for this property. This is public realm areas in town. And one seems like it would have been a common courtesy to have the property owner involved or property steward involved. So I'm recommending that the commission can talk about whether we want to make a motion to recommend affirmative action, recommend no action, or take no position. On whatever way we decide to go, I think we should also provide a statement, a comment on this to talk about the process. It becomes a forum in which people can learn about what we already have in place and learn about what we would like to see for cooperation moving forward. And we would need to work on how we would structure that, whatever statement we're going to make sure we're all comfortable with it. So that is my suggestion, that I'll entertain any motion for affirmative action, no action, or no position. If anybody wants to make a motion, what I would recommend that we provide a statement at a minimum. Yes, Andrea.
Yeah, that was, there's a couple of things people could learn if we make a statement, which is the policies that we do have in place, because even though we did inform the Historic Commission of that, they continue to make the same presentation, which makes it sound like we have no policies that deal with those. They continually compare us to Maynard, who has no policy for scenic roads, and then to Lexington, who has a scenic roads bylaw that now includes almost all the roads, which essentially is what we have in our roads policy. And there's never like an acknowledgement of our roads policy and how that may have benefited Concord all these years. So I think, like you said, Jeff, just informing people of the policies we have and the good that those policies have done and how closely they've been followed is important. I would recommend, I just think this needs a little more time to get that kind of information out. There's like a false sense of urgency that has been, is kind of in the commission's presentation, which I don't really agree with. And I think when you have a false sense of urgency, you tend to make very bad decisions with that false sense of urgency. So I would recommend, just taking the town, the people of the town, the commission, the departments, all working together to make a really clear decision about what's the best way to handle these things. Because I think the thing that concerns all of us is a private developer coming in and tearing down stone walls. And I don't know if this scenic bylaws policy would actually prevent that. I don't know if that actually addresses it. From the discussions that we've had, I don't think that prevents that very specific threat to the stone walls.
Before I open it up for public comment, if anybody would like anything else from a commission member.
Well, so Alan had said that, once we did start to get involved in the process. And I think there's something to be said that it should have been done sooner. But Alan had said that, yes, it was incorporated into the article. Some of the things that we had talked about was incorporated into the article. And it does state in the article that there will be a board, or planning committee to draw up the language. So I think that's really important. Perhaps even ask for a higher representation or something like that in our statement. Higher representation than, because we are the stewards. So it's just the thought.
I wondered
Andrea?
too, I think I think it was the select board was going through many of the town articles, like discussing some of them that may have different positions. But I don't think that this particular article was presented to them. And I wondered why that was. Was that because they didn't want more weigh-in from us? It's just interesting that almost every article was on the agenda for the select board, but not this one.
So with that, I'll let, not to put you on the spot, Nancy, if you'd like to say anything, I'll let you
Well,
share your thoughts.
thank you. I can't explain why that wasn't before the select board, but I can assure you it was not any conspiracy to keep it from being considered. I have always viewed this as an opportunity for increased collaboration. The commission sent out people to be like myself, to sit in on commissions like planning, like HDC, like the Public Works Commission, to understand better what other commissions and committees do and how they do it, and how we can integrate our thinking and our discussions better. So I don't remember, but I may be incorrect, I don't remember that we got any formal complaint from the Public Works Commission that I can't imagine anybody on the commission would have been reluctant to have a more focused conversation. And maybe there have been on the side that I'm not aware of. I've been actually working on primarily on some other things most immediately. But I've always viewed this as an opportunity to bring awareness to the historic walls and scenic roads, that are in this town, and to put a bigger focus on collaboration. So I'm really disappointed to hear that the commission is viewed this way. It seems to me, I know it was spurred by concern for a specific road, but going back over several years, Jim might remember this and other people, there were other attempts to have a scenic roads bylaw. And I'm very distressed to hear how unhappy the Public Works Commission is with the Historical Commission. And I feel some responsibility for that. And I apologize if I failed to take your message back, but I know I've heard some people here have objected, but I know there've been many other meetings as well. So maybe a formal letter of concern would have resulted in a meeting or some greater degree of collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else from the public? Yes, Brooks.
Brooks Reed, 366 Estabrook Road. I actually tried to find out if the stone walls in front of my house are in public land or the trees. I actually made a request to find out where the bounds of the road were. And I got an incredibly vicious letter back from town council telling me I'm frivolous to ask. Happy to share that with anyone who wants to see it. But I understand the issue of determining where the bounds are. But I didn't expect to get a vicious reply when I asked where they were. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing that. And actually, another thing I was going to mention is if this passes at town meeting and a committee is pulled together to deal with how it's going to be rolled out, I think this issue of the right-of-way limits, the boundaries that can or cannot be determined needs to be obviously discussed as part of that process. And when someone comes in to get a permit through the scenic road bylaw, we need to be careful on, or need to be informed on how that process works, because it could be a very detailed investigation or record research it has to go on. And we need to make sure that that responsibility is placed properly within the town. And whoever it's placed with has the resources to undertake that if additional research is needed, because, you know, only so many people and so many hours, and there's only so much we can take on, the staff can take on. It may fall within another department. And I just want to go on record as saying, I agree with Jim. It needs to be clearly thought out how those bounds are going to be determined and who's going to be responsible for that if this passes and regulations are developed. Or if this passes and regulations are developed. Yes, Andrea.
And also just to make clear that if one of these roads in the scenic bylaw are slated for work, for just road work, maintenance, replacement of sewers or anything, that scenic bylaw can then, I mean, it goes through the planning committee and it's approved by many people when that work from the engineering department from Public Works is put out there. But the scenic bylaws will allow an extra, it can instigate an extra meeting, an extra several meetings for approval. It can actually put off work that needs to be planned for this season may have to wait till next season, and again, approval from another budget. Like you can really wind up kicking the road work down the road to take care of, because of all these extra layers of bureaucracy that you're asking for, things that have a very clear process now where budgets are approved and road work is approved before certain seasons start, that this could really disrupt on the particular roads in the scenic bylaws. I don't think that's ever really been made clear. We haven't had the opportunity to make clear. This was presented, it seemed like it was shepherded through for several approvals of other committees before we ever really had a chance to discuss it and then present that to the public.
With that, is there anybody from the commission who would like to make a motion regarding this particular article?
Jeff, I believe Nancy was asking to be recognized again. Is that
Oh,
correct?
sorry, I missed that. Yes, Nancy.
I was just going to say that this issue of where the right-of-way is complicated by the fact that so many of the ancient markings for boundaries are on tumbled down stone walls or cut down dead trees. And while that's an important thing to know about, maybe it's an unresolvable issue sometimes. But I would think rare cases, Reed, I know your road, so that might be one of those where it gets mysterious. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. So I'll go back to the commission. Is there anybody, not that we have to, but would anybody like to make a motion regarding this particular article? Andrea.
So I, Andrea Solomon, hereby make a motion to take no action on Article 30, the Scenic Roads Bylaw.
Would anybody like to second that?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I mean, I don't want to, I don't feel comfortable making or recommending affirmative action. And it doesn't make any sense to say no position. So that sort of leaves us with no action. Andrea has done a great job in representing us at the planning board hearing. I think she's went to the League of Women Voters meeting. I think the questions or the concerns that we have should be raised for the public. I think that this is probably not an article that many of the citizens who will attend town meeting are going to think is controversial. And I suspect that it will be successful. But I think it's important for us to have the issues that we think need to be raised to be put in the public knowledge.
Any other comment? We have a first and we have a second, and I will take a vote. Andrea Solomon on the motion on the motion to take no action, recommend no action on this article, just to make it clear what we're voting on. You said it much better than I just did, but
I just read it from the script, but aye.
Jim, Terry,
Aye.
Casey Winslow. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Nay.
Jeff Vassar, nay. Is there anybody who would like to make another motion? Do we need to make a motion in order?
Number today.
So
Yeah.
again, just for the procedural issues, you're not required to. I'm sure the question will be, what's the Public Works Commission thing? So you have affirmative, no action, no position. You can take no position and still have a statement, and that's appropriate as well, just as, an opportunity to share your thoughts and agree. What I hear clearly is the Public Works Commission continues to be in favor of protecting shade trees and stone walls. It's just this mechanism. But there is, just to be clear, a regulatory process that hasn't been vetted yet. And I think you've identified that. And then Casey mentioned that, how to be more engaged or involved is probably important, or at least have a voice is important. So I think that's a message that could be, communicated effectively. And I think, the reality is the people behind this have very good intention, same as the commission, just different perspective. So your perspective has to be broader. You're dealing with challenges like bimodal transportation issues and sharing roads and all sorts of things that are broad. And I think that's the perspective that you have to have. But just to go back, you could take no position and still have a statement.
So I would like to make a statement. I would recommend we make a statement. I don't know if we have to vote on taking no position and a statement, or affirmative action and a statement, or if we can just take a vote on making a statement, or do we even need to take a vote if we want to make a statement?
I think we need to make a statement. And my preference would be to not make any recommendation. Notice, not make a recommendation that says no position. I mean, we have a divide, of the 4 members that are here, we have 2 that are opposed to no, or recommending no action, and 2 who don't support that. So we're not going to get anywhere. I think a statement is important. That will educate the public. It may modify some positions of people. Who knows?
I agree with Jim. And if nothing else, it's an opportunity to educate those who are listening at the time our position is made known.
Andrea, are you willing to take a first draft at such a statement and then pass it through Jeff to the rest of us?
Yes.
I think that would be fantastic. Casey, any thoughts?
And I would just also just like to clarify, it's not like I would be against this in a year if the commissions involved and boards and committees would actually listen to something that the Public Works Committee and department had to say. It may, in the end, be a great thing for Concord. I just think it's had very little attention by the people who will be directly most involved with, like you said, shepherding it. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and Andrea, I totally agree with you. We took different votes on that motion, but I totally agree. I do not like, I shouldn't use such harsh words. I don't think the process was fully vetted. But I guess my question to Alan or anybody, do we need to take a vote on making a statement, preparing a statement? Or do we just agree?
I'm hearing, as a rookie, I'm going to say, I'm hearing you're going to make a statement as long as it represents the Public Works Commission. I
Yep.
guess part of that statement would be that there wasn't a decision whether it was affirmative, no action, or no position. You just are interested in making the statement and say that, you know?
Well, we were split. We were split. The vote was split.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But do we even need to bring that up in the statement? Can our statement, and I mean, Andrea volunteered to do the first draft, that's great. And I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth here, but I think it's more in regards to this article, we would like the voters of the town of Concord to understand that we have this roads policy, it does this. We didn't feel we were given sufficient involvement in the process, and we want everybody, you know, those are the main themes. Be aware of.
I'm wondering if the no position is being viewed too literally, where basically there wasn't a decision to be affirmative or against, but you certainly entertained it. So you're not offering support or opposition as a collective body.
Right, but I don't feel that we're taking no position, Alan. I think that I think we can ask the moderator for 2 minutes or whatever amount of time she feels is appropriate to make a comment regarding the article.
Yep. I personally agree with Jim. I think by not saying we took a vote in a particular position helps send a message also. It may not be a direct message, but
right. Procedurally, I'm sorry, I don't know the process enough to say, but I think you could vote on the fact that you are not taking, you're not saying no position, you're not taking a position, but you are interested in providing a statement.
Correct.
yes.
Yeah. Understood. You're making it easy.
So I'll just to make sure everything's done properly here, I will make a motion that the commission prepare a statement regarding the scenic road bylaw to be made available on the town website, and if so, allowed to present at town meeting, and that Andrea will take the initial step to draft that message, which will then be circulated to all commission members for their comments before it is finalized and made available to, again, on the website, to the town moderator and presented at town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? For that, I'll take a roll call vote. Andrea?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Casey?
Aye.
Jeff? Aye. Jeff Vassar, aye. Sorry, I didn't use the formal names of everybody. Andrea, thank you very much for your comments, your research, and you're willing to pull together an initial statement. It's fantastic. What was next on the list, Alan?
Okay, we have Article 31, zoning bylaw amendment, additional dwelling unit. The reason that is for discussion is because, as we've talked about in the past, there are implications with these ADUs on public works, and primarily when it deals with utility services and wastewater capacity. And we just wanted to make sure that if that question came up, the commission was aware that, yes, there's implications. We have not said we do not have a moratorium. It is sort of mentioned in the memo. We continue to manage this, but the implication is as you add density and infill, you're increasing, capacity and water demand, two issues that are, managed closely by the commission. And the ADUs also introduce some potential challenges or design standard issues that we need to reconcile, and you may hear more about that. But just in order to provide the infrastructure on private property, obviously two dwelling units require reliable service, and staff has been looking at models out there to help guide that. But I just wanted the commission to be aware there are implications that are kind of tangential to what you're involved with. That was the purpose of just highlighting that.
Any discussion from commission members? Yes, Jim.
Yeah, a question, Alan. Will there be two water services to these properties or two sewer hookups? Because
Those
now
are-
I don't think that we do it that way.
Yeah, so presently with a duplex, we do allow two dedicated water services from the main to each individual dwelling unit. And that's been the case for two families, and this would be similar. But now it's important to understand with an ADU, accessory dwelling unit could be something that's in a basement, could be on a second floor, it could be on a first and second floor shared in one building. It could be in a separate structure like a garage or something like that. So each one of those has different service design challenges. And the interest is to be able to provide uninterrupted service for an occupant independent of the other occupant. That's sort of the goal. That's one of the challenges we look at.
Okay. So it sounds like it's a challenge and it's going to require some work, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're opposed to the provision.
No, in fact, the provision is in essence consistent. Well, it is up for the Public Works Commission with the town's goals of sort of, providing additional residential diversity and mix, and sort of consistent with sustainable principles, and allowing long-term residents to possibly do something creative so they can stay in Concord and have rental property, that sort of thing. So it's been pretty widely and publicly kind of shared and I think embraced. It's just the implications are it's a capacity on wastewater, which we need to know. And we're not saying we don't have it, but it's just one of the other new challenges and the design standards. So I wanted the Public Works Commission to know this because these are questions that people are asking, and you may hear.
So do you have a potential statement then, Alan, that the commissioners could?
No recommendation. It's literally, it's an awareness, and it's up to the commission if they have thoughts on that, but I didn't see anything compelling, but it does affect our operations, and just thought you should be aware.
I also think this particular article, though, was it was regarding when the property were to change hands, if the ADU was approved prior to 2020, because some of the existing ones didn't meet all the criteria. So this is so that when you change hands, property change hands, the ADU follows with it. So yeah, so that I don't think it's going to be a huge number.
That's correct.
Right.
This one's similar to prior discussion we had. Because there's a couple zoning bylaw changes, and they typically are every year. Does anybody ever consult with us regarding the impacts on infrastructure if density is increased due to a zoning change?
Yes, I will mention it was a while ago, and it's just been such a crazy couple of years, but I believe the Director of Planning Land Management came and presented some of these to the commission for some feedback and guidance. So this isn't something we were unaware of, and I think it gave us an opportunity to sort of educate the commission as to this wastewater capacity issue before.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
I do remember that, Alan. I think Article 33 is a much bigger potential impact on
Yes,
expansion. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's probably the next one you were going to talk about. Though,
That's
right?
correct. And so again, it's for awareness. And there, when we say that you don't have to have any comment on this article at all, just be aware. So,
So- yeah, would anybody like to make a motion that we take a position on, what was that, Article 31,
31, yeah.
based on the 3 different categories talked about earlier? Jim says no. Seeing shaking heads. All right, next one now. Thank you.
Great. So we go to Article 33. That's a zoning bylaw amendment, and that's relates to the interest in expanding we're changing the zoning within Thoreau District, Thoreau Depot, and they're trying to entice sort of mixed use, commercial, residential, near the public transportation. It's really just an awareness that when they do that, they will be looking for utility, improvements. We're going to have to be mindful of what the capacity issues are going to be. There's nothing to specifically review at this point. It's just simply enabling a change to the zoning to allow that kind of mixed use. And Casey, you might even be more familiar with some of the nuances, but it has a likelihood of having an impact. And if we are to accommodate it, it will take from potential future capacity or other expansions that we have. But this is a long process. It's the beginning of one. I just didn't want to be a surprise down the road that, there may be utility issues that we need to address.
Any
Alan,
comments?
does the sewer go along Sudbury Road in front of Crosby's, for example?
Yes, that area is sewered.
Okay,
And,
thank you.
And the sewer would enable the kind of development they'd like to realize.
Yeah.
It would otherwise be difficult.
Any other comments?
So this is the one that I look at and I think, okay, they're not really asking anyone to vote on a specific project. They're asking for a zoning change, which, by the way, now is only a 50%. It's a simple majority, whereas zoning changes used to be a super majority, and now it's a simple majority. And so it's interesting, and everybody says, oh, well, we're not really voting on a specific project, but that's actually part of the problem. We don't know what we're voting on.
Mhm.
So to me, this one potentially could open up a big can of worms for public works and for the town, actually, in terms of the sewer and the capacity.
Right.
Um,
Yes, Andrea.
Casey, I was just gonna ask you, is that because it could be a lot more residences that all of a sudden we're trying to
Yeah.
accommodate, or is it more businesses that could cause the issue, or is it a mix?
It
just-
is
you
both,
just don't
and that's
know.
the whole
Okay.
idea of this is the mixed use, with businesses on the bottom and residences on the top, and then there's height restrictions involved with this particular zoning bylaw change. But that's not our concern. Our concern, of course, is the sewer capacity. But yes, the density is much greater than what would normally be zoned for this area. Yeah.
Yes,
I was just
go
gonna,
right ahead.
I was gonna say, I know at some of the other meetings, people had brought that up, and they'd been worried about not only the extra utilities, but also there wasn't any plan to maybe compel businesses and residences to go for more green energy. And that was just something I thought was interesting, that wasn't incorporated into the zoning laws or the recommendations at all in this, which was kind of too bad, because that might relieve some of the issues that could come up. So there's just another comment from other people that I thought was worthwhile.
So Alan, do you know, I forget the exact term, but some communities have adopted it's kind of a green community standards that add on to building code requirements to address more efficient buildings and limited water use. I don't know if Concord is bought into that or not.
Like the stretch code is
Yes.
generally on the electric side. There is no such thing on the water side. However, we have in our rules and regulations requirements when there's an increase in water supply that's pretty marginal, over 30 gallons a minute. So a project of this scale or some of these buildings would require a water impact assessment, and that's where they have to demonstrate it's the equivalent of a stretch code on water conservation, you know,
Okay.
with their plumbing and low flow toilets and shower heads and that sort of thing. So there is a tool that the Public Works has been using and can use to increase beyond plumbing code restrictions, but that's through the our rules and regulations.
Okay. And I know I believe I've talked to you and other people in town government here about sewer capacity. So if this was to pass and a project came forward and they would want to obviously tie into the sewer or increase the service that's already flowing into the sewer, what controls do we have in place and who's responsible for making the final decision if our system can handle additional discharge?
Well, it
Or
would
input, I guess it's not discharge, stuff flowing in.
existing policy. So we have a comprehensive wastewater master plan that was submitted to the Office of Energy Environmental Affairs. So we have a certificate. It identifies a fairly general plan, which includes some potential expansion areas that we've identified for future expansion to serve existing environmental needs with some infill allowance. And it's our guide as to how we're presently managing. If we have significant infill and we were to exceed our permit, it would likely result in we'd have to revisit that comprehensive plan, and we'd probably get a consent order from EPA and DEP because that's the permit that is, you know, triggered. And we'd have to demonstrate what are we doing to manage or address this increase in flow. We presently spend time and resource into inflow and infiltration, that's I&I. We have a design of a potential or future groundwater discharge expansion at the existing wastewater treatment plant for about 155,000 gallons a day, which is significant. And presently, we are in the process of providing a request to EPA for our regular renewal for the wastewater treatment plant. We're asking for a 10 or 15% increase in our existing flow. We believe we can manage it with the existing facility, and that would provide some relief to us. We think it's the right way to go. We'll probably hope to work with the regulators and any environmental interest groups that might have an interest in, understanding the impact on Concord River. But we think that's probably our best, most favorable alternative, where by increasing flow, we could continue to treat and reduce. With wastewater, you have flow and load. Load are all the pollutants. And we believe we can keep the pollutants down to our permit level that it exists while increasing the throughput with flow. And so that's our position. That's what we're presenting to the regulators. And if we can do that, that would accommodate potentially this kind of development. So it's in Concord's interest. So we're looking at permit opportunities, then if need be, infrastructure expansion, like we talked about with the sewer improvement fee. We have funds available to allow for some expansion, but we'd have to realize more planning, design, and permitting to do that. But we're talking millions of dollars of investment.
Thank you for that. A little more specific on my question. If someone's proposing a substantial development, higher density that's gonna add to the flow, but still within our permit cap. You know, if it's on this zoning passes and it's on this site and we have capacity, who makes the final decision if they can tap in? Is it just if the project's approved, we take the flow, or do we have a chance to comment on it?
Public Works is the entity that would review that design basis. You're responsible for approving flows over 1,000 gallons a day increase.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Casey, I don't know if you're talking to us, but you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. No, but I just feel like that lots of times they don't come to us until like the very end. And it's like every other board has approved it. And then like we would have to be the ones to say, oh, we don't have the capacity, or we have it, but we don't want to give it all up in one fell swoop type thing.
Yep.
You know, so it's just an interesting process, the way things come to us lots of times at the end. And it's not that good.
So we do participate in, staff is involved with reviews of projects early on. Generally, a larger project would have a preliminary review opportunity, and the owner or applicant would be informed of this capacity issue, and that is something they need to consider. And there's been some examples where they do come before they get realized into more, 100% design. So it's not a perfect system. It's a challenge when you have finite sort of utilities, and it does affect economic growth and development. But if that system were to be authorized to connect, the fees are pretty significant, and the fees are significant so we can then do the infrastructure required to mitigate that impact.
And we could potentially give them feedback up front that the density here is not necessarily going to support, that type of flow.
That's right.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from commissioners? Or would anybody like to make a motion that we take a position on Article 33? Not seeing any interest there. So now we'll go on to the next one.
Okay, we are on the Article 16. That is a 5-year moratorium on the installation of synthetic turf on town land. This is a citizen petition, and it is, I provided you with the abstract, at least it was provided through the town meeting warrant. And we've had, I think we've had some conversations on this, but just to refresh the memory, this is a moratorium on new synthetic turf in areas where it doesn't exist. The proponent, I think, first introduced this back in 2016, where it passed. I think it was renewed. There was another, I think it was 2019, where it was then brought back to town meeting and continued and supported for the moratorium. And this one looks for a 5-year extension to the same kind of language. The interest is, there's concern about environmental impacts of synthetic turf, as well as health implications to the users of this turf field. And recently it was expanded to raise a concern on something we're familiar with, PFAS, as a new contaminant or concern that could be, associated with the synthetic fields. That's where the proponent comes from. The other side of this is a lot of the programs in Concord. There's some, they take their athletic and recreation pretty seriously, and synthetic turf is considered to be sort of a premium facilities for field hockey and very competitive sports. And so that's the other side. But right now, what's important, there was a question before on, would this have any impact on a planned replacement of the Doug White Field that's associated with the Concord Carlisle High School. We did get clarification from our last meeting that no, this wouldn't impact that directly. But as I identified in my memo, it doesn't mean the conversation won't come up as far as the very same issues, but there is no moratorium to prevent the town from moving forward with a replacement of that field. It's just, it's going to be a public process no matter how we look at it.
Yep. Thank you. Any comment, questions on this article? Nope. Thank you, Alan. Next one.
Okay. Authorization, Article 37, to authorize the select board to petition to impose a checkout bag charge. Again, this is a citizen petition. This is in essence a movement kind of statewide where the interest is to reduce, or I guess it would be increase the use of reusable bags or totes when you're shopping. The proponent is identified, in essence created, he wants the support of the select board for legislation that hasn't passed, but for them to support this statewide legislation to allow communities to adopt this bylaw. And then he provided language about what the bylaw might look like, that would allow or require retail establishments charge a fee for the use of bags, again, to try and encourage people to reuse bags and not pick up a new bag when they leave. And it involves a fee of, I think, 10 cents per bag. Within it, the proponent identified up until recently that they were hoping the Board of Health would administer this program, to adopt regulations once the state law was passed, and then take care of enforcement. Just a few weeks ago, Public Works was approached to find out if we would be willing to support, and sort of be the advocate, or not the advocate, but if this were to pass, to be responsible for developing regulations and implementation and enforcement related to this. We really didn't have too much time to really understand and digest what the implications would be. The fact that it's to improve, recycling in town is, an interest to Public Works. But the question on the mechanics is too soon to tell. And so I believe the article was then modified to designate the town manager and or his or her designee to be responsible for the development of regulations and enforcement. So it's to be determined if and what, how Public Works should be involved. I will say that historically Public Works has been engaged. I think we were tagged to be responsible for the polystyrene enforcement in the food establishments in town, which is unusual, but I think it was because at the time we had the bandwidth to do that. I think there was third-party support for the implementation. But again, these are all that I think it's the reason it came towards Public Works at the end was we were involved with the polystyrene and the plastic bag also ban as well. So at this point, it's more information. We don't have enough information to say that we'd be able to take on this program, but it's at this point not requesting that.
Yep. Thank you, Alan. Seems to be a recurring theme on some of these things that little outreach and communication needs some more proactive thought on some of these items. I'm trying to choose my words correctly, but everybody gets the idea here. Anybody else like to comment on this?
Yeah, I think the thing that concerns me is the point that Alan just brought up. that Public Works Department somewhere, somehow, will find additional bandwidth to administer this, or, set up rules and regulations and then check to make sure that it's being followed through.
Yeah.
I think the reason for that is that probably Public Works is one of the larger departments in town, and therefore, the library doesn't make sense. The public health commission has got, specific responsibilities. So I understand why, but it doesn't make me more comfortable that we're going to be able to handle the main responsibilities that Public Works is responsible for.
I agree, Jim. As if I don't know if I've said it in this meeting, but certainly said it to Alan. If the staff is being asked to do more, they should be given the resources to do more, whether it be equipment or people. But we don't know if we're going to be asked to take this on or not. But if we are, hopefully we will be able to make that case that we need the resources necessary to take this on. Are we good with that one?
Yeah.
Is there one more, Alan?
Okay, we have, so there's two articles relating to the reformatory branch trail. Article 46, and they're both citizen petition. Article 46 is the reformatory branch trail feasibility study. And that was, the intent is to provide, I think it was on the order of $75,000 to do a feasibility assessment of what can or could be realized, what improvements can or should be realized for the reformatory branch trail. The proponent is basically saying get a third-party consultant on board, spend some money, try and get a pulse of what the community's needs and interests are, and see where that leads. That's sort of the abstract of how can that trail be I guess realized in a way the community sees fit. I don't think there's an end product. It's more of just what could or should be done. Article 47, the comparison is to basically the proponent for that is, in essence, the trail is in good condition and as it exists, and is not looking for studies of how to upgrade or improve or modify, but simply, just maintain it as is. And those are basically, you can read the article. That's my synopsis of a shade of gray. But it's up to you folks if you want to sort of, one of the issues, and again, I raised this because regardless, Public Works does provide support to keep that trail open, partly because we have infrastructure, a sewer line that runs at least halfway down from Lowell Road up towards the wastewater treatment plant. We also support NRC, who takes care of trails around town, and sometimes if they need additional resources or equipment to help with some trees that might come down, a storm, that sort of thing, we may help. But we don't have day-to-day maintenance responsibility and haven't assumed that. We keep it open, we keep it with vegetation from growing on it. And I will say this particular trail has, there's been volunteers who've done a lot to maintain it over the years. And people who enjoy the trail enjoy it as is because of the volunteers' efforts. They've really put a lot of time and energy in. So it doesn't happen by elves. Someone's doing maintenance, but it isn't Public Works at this point.
Thank you, Alan. Comments, questions? Jim?
Yeah, Alan, do we do any drainage work on the area where the sewer is?
No, and that's one of the areas we've walked the trail, we've looked at it. There's obviously areas of room for improvement or opportunities, but Public Works has not been involved with any evaluation or design or improvements on that at all. That's also partly done by the the volunteer trail committee who maintain those.
The one comment I have, and maybe this is one where we submit a written comment also, is that if Article 46 were to pass, we want to make sure we are included in the process from the start. Whatever that process might be, that according to the way it's written, what I'm reading is the town manager shall designate who will take the lead on this feasibility study, and if it's not us, we need
My
to be
sense is
involved.
that 46 has a little bit of trouble because the people who don't want it to be much different than it is now think that spending money will get a consultant who will get us paved and whatever. So I don't see that. What I think should come out of this, and this is just personal, I think the select board should appoint some kind of committee to evaluate the situation. I have actually ridden this route from Bedford Street to Lowell Road 3 times in the last 2 weeks. The place, there is the part between the rocks, if anybody has actually gone, where there's 3 big boulders, and then the road where the sewer treatment plant is, that needs to be worked on for improvement for usage by people. And the part that is from the cemetery to Monument Street needs to be worked on for drainage. That will be wet until we stop getting any rains, and
Yep.
things will go well. But so I think community needs to figure out what to do instead of having a consultant do it.
And if it is the community, we should be at the table with them too.
Yeah, correct. Alan, I think you've done a fantastic job of describing all of these articles for us, and it's been very helpful. If nothing else, we're better informed citizens for town meeting.
My job is to inform you so you can represent, and you do that well, so thank you.
So if everybody's in agreement, we will move on to the next item, which will be the director's report, which I know as they've done in the past, sometimes they can make these reports very efficient.
We will make it very efficient, and I do appreciate staff kind of listening in, but I also know that they get a lot out of hearing your deliberation. So that's what they tell me anyway, right? So let us go to the, let me see if I can bring up the director's report. I think I'm going to start with Steve Dukran, a town engineer. And Steve, are you there? Can you see, did I bring up the director's report?
Yes.
All right, Steve, okay, so we'll go to engineering update.
So we started today, we're not going to show any photographs, but we'll show you some plans that we've had prepared. This is the plan of the Store Street parking lot improvement. Would have seen the condition of the pavement is bad. So the work is to rebuild the parking lot, restripe it, add some spaces. We're looking at getting about 10 new spaces, including 1 handicap. Adding some drainage. Today there is little drainage and there's puddling. So this drainage work actually was performed last year. Let's see what else we're doing there. So the work is about to resume within the next couple of weeks. The contract will be back, and we'll make arrangements with the users of the lot for alternative parking and try to get this done within a couple of weeks, and be back in order so that in the summer we'll have a full functionality of the parking lot. Oh, one thing I wanted to add, we have put in some underground infrastructure for a future electric vehicle charging station. So the light plant is helping us with that. The next plan shows some work that's about to start over in Commonwealth Ave. The overall project is a complete streets project that the town has undertaken. That work is scheduled to start this summer. So going ahead of us is National Grid. They have a plan that's shown yet to do some upgrades to their underground system. They did go before the select board last Monday to have approval for this locating, it's called a grant of location, locating the new utility. And so we are asking them to fast track this work so that we can get going as soon as possible, knowing that there'll be a lot of challenges on that street. We have a deadline to complete this work for the grant, and that deadline is September of this year. What we're showing here is a town-wide map. We have taken on a project to evaluate all culverts. We have 176 of them dotted all over town. We have hired, we're in the process of hiring a consultant. We have selected a consultant through the regular selection process, and we're working with them to develop a contract so they can start at work soon. This project also includes looking at our 8 bridges as well. The end product of this is to have an asset management plan that will give us information so we can prepare good capital improvement plans for the near future and for years to come. That's it for engineering.
Thank you, Steve. Let's see, Aaron McCloskey, the Highway Ground Superintendent. Aaron, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, great.
Good evening, Commissioners. Aaron McCloskey, Highway and Ground Superintendent. So in March, busy month for us. We're starting transition from winter maintenance program being our priority, and starting to move over to some spring month maintenance and construction season. So this is a photo here where we work together with the Water and Sewer Division to repair and reinstall, reconstruct a new asphalt drive for the a water main break that took place last fall on Baker Ave. The trench had settled out, and so we were reconstructing that to make it safe for passing motor vehicles. We opened up the compost site 2 weekends ago at 755 Walden Street. A lot of work goes into preparing that for reopening this spring. And the town does use that as our snow dump for snow and ice winter maintenance operations. A lot of the material needs to get moved around. The leaf windrows for compost need to be turned. And we have to do a lot of paving because the pavement condition is kind of general overall poor condition in that facility. So to make it safe for residents and users of the facility, crews go out there and manually pave, do a lot of patch work over the winter. You can see the small photo there. There's an employee compacting an asphalt patch that was installed by the crew. Emerson project, we are hopefully wrapping that up here very soon in the early part of the summertime. What's left in the project is irrigation activation. So the irrigation subcontractor is in, and has been in this week, activating the wells and activating the irrigation system. This is a photo from last week. We were testing the irrigation system and setting that. So they will continue to work on that this weekend and next week until that's completed. We'll be wrapping up that project shortly. A lot of hard work by Highway and Grounds team. I gotta acknowledge Eric Shaw and all his great work on managing this project and seeing it through to the end. This is a photo of the fuel depot. This was a capital item that was requested and funded in FY22 for the CPW Kais Road facility. The new dispenser was installed last week. The old dispenser was kind of past its useful life, if you will. The parts were not readily available for replacement. And so we were excited to get this dispenser installed. There was quite a bit of lead time delay on procurement just for once we ordered it on the vendor getting it, but we're happy that it's in and they did a great job installing it, and it's in full service today. This is an example of a project here on the rail trail, Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. The Highway and Grounds Division maintains the rail trail. We inspect it regularly, and there was some damage here to the post and rail fence along the rail trail. So there's a crew went out and repaired that. Looks like some tree damage. There oftentimes is either maybe some tree damage related to weather events, or sometimes vandalizing of of boards, and we'll go out there and replace those as we receive notification of those. It's the War Memorial Monument Square. We maintain that the landscaping in that area. And this is a photo. We installed some new flags representing all the service branches here and the flag of the United States. So all new flags were ordered and installed ahead of this weekend's Patriots Day parade. And this is there was a business recycling event hosted by CPW that took place at the Kaiser Road Complex a couple of weeks ago, where businesses are invited to attend and recycle different materials that they might have. There's electronics waste, hazardous material, things of that nature that we wouldn't want disposed of in the solid waste or normal recycling stream.
All right, Aaron, I think that's it on highway
Thank you.
ground. Go to Jeff McCloskey, who's the water sewer superintendent. Jeff?
Jeff Morosky, yes, water and sewer superintendent. What we're looking at here on the slide is a demonstration of the hydrant flushing that we do. We have a program of unilateral hydrant flushing, and we take care of a third of the town's distribution system each time we do this. So we do it in the spring, we do it in the fall, and then the next year rolls around, we do it in the spring again. So each third of the city will get flushed on a every 1.5 year basis. In this case, there's 2 different types of diffusers. They're both a swivel type, but the nozzle that's projecting out into the air is useful to direct the flow in a certain location. The other one that's on the pavement will do a diffusing again of the flow. And you can see, especially in the inset view, that T swivel diffuser, there's a lot of debris that's being flushed out of the water mains. When we're doing flushing, we're putting in unidirectional flushing. That's a best management practice. What we're really doing is operating the valving of the water mains, hydrant branches, operating the hydrants. This is all good practice. It lets us know that everything is in good working condition. But we're doing it in such a way that puts a velocity through the pipe, controlling how the water flows through the system. And what that does is it gives a scouring velocity for anything that may be settled within the water mains. And that will allow us to flush it out. So this is really a water quality improvement, primarily practice. It's removing turbidity and other settled deposits, and also helps to enhance our chlorine residual in the system when we do this. Next, I'm sorry, the hydrant flushing, we're just wrapping that up today. It was 2 weeks effort. Today was the final day of flushing for the spring. This slide right here, I was actually approached by a former contact to participate in a STEM event that WPI was hosting at Polar Park in Worcester, the home of the Worcester Red Sox. So I put together a display. I had some brainstorming assistance from Melissa Simoncini on this, but fundamentally what I was doing with the display was a pH demonstration. Those nifty purple vials were actually a pH solution, indicator solution that I created using red cabbage. Red cabbage actually has a substance in it called anthocyanins that makes a really good indicator, pH indicator. It'll change one color if you add an acid to it. It'll change a different color if you add a base to it. And it'll be even more extreme changes of color if the strength of the acid or the base is increased. I've always had a passion for participating in these types of events. So I was pleased to give it a first go. And it was actually very well attended. I think there were in excess of 6,000 registrants that came through and participated in the STEM fair. One last thing I did want to mention, it's not related to this slide. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, which is the federal agency responsible for regulating and providing safety oversight of commercial motor vehicles, They had a new rule that became effective on February 7th that requires anyone that's pursuing a new CDL or pursuing an upgrade of a CDL, say from a Class B CDL to a Class A, or someone if someone's trying to obtain a certain endorsement on their CDL licensure, they have to go through something called entry-level driver training. And this is something that we've actually done in an informal basis. We've had very experienced staff, and the operations staff of water and sewer, all those positions really require CDL licensure. So we've got experienced staff that has been doing instruction. So what we opted to do was to register as a training agency through FMCSA. And also we registered 135 Kais Road as a training location. So we're actually putting one of our new employees through this process and preparing him so that he can take his CDLB examination. So it's just a new change that we're proud to have implemented.
Jeff, thank you for that. I think that wraps up the director's report. Obviously, any questions the commission has for staff? They're here, all ears. Jeff, are you going to call on Jim, or are you?
I'm on mute again. Yes, actually, I'm going to call on Jim, and
Okay,
if he has if he has a question, I'm going to ask if he's willing to take over and run the meeting, because I have to get to another meeting, and then he can ask as many questions as he would like if he's going to be in charge.
Sure, thanks, Jeff.
Sorry, I have to bow out.
Okay.
With the Stowe Street lot work that's going to be done, I think it's important that you communicate to the library and to Emerson Umbrella when the lot is going to be out of commission, because that lot is full almost all the time. On your report, Alan, under the Hubbard Street improvements, it mentioned that Newport construction is going to begin next week. Hopefully they won't be there on Patriots Day, because the Patriots Day parade passes right across that on Stowe Street, when they're starting and when they're ending. And the final thing, the comment I had was on the Commonwealth improvements. Remember that we gave sort of a sewer improvement or additional sewerage for the construction that's going to be on Commonwealth Avenue. I hope that you can get them to do that before you repave Commonwealth Avenue this summer, so that we don't have that broken up. And finally, the PFAS reports were very good. How long are you going to have to do the Q Cargo well on a monthly basis versus quarterly?
So that was the one question. The other were comments on the PFAS. I believe we have a request for reduced monitoring for that. As a reminder, we had required monthly because of an early detection. On a positive note, the trend has been down, but it's still very much, it's present, but we're in the single digits. And because of that, we have made a request to DEP to get a reduction in sampling to be consistent with the other sources, but all good news on that front.
Okay, thanks.
Our Patriots Day, we thought that Newport might lead the parade. We weren't sure,
Yeah. Andy or Casey, any questions or comments? I don't see any. Are there any citizen comments or questions? Oh, Robert. Yes, Robert, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Okay. Robert Hilsiger, 102 Central Street. Just two brief things. I hope the police department has remembered that studded tires will have to be taken off the road after the end of the month. Certainly to protect the public ways and not have studded tires on the roads, which we certainly all talk about. The second item is just to really ask a question that hopefully with the monies the town has gotten from the federal government, the $5.1 million. I'm hopeful that that the DPW can get at least $1 million for the roads program. I was disappointed that the money that was approved, but I would hope we could get at least another $1 million to do that for this next year. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna, are there any other comments?
I don't see any, Jim.
Would any one of the commissioners like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn the April 13th meeting.
I
Is there a
second.
Okay,
I second.
okay. On a roll call vote, Casey Winslow,
Aye.
Andrea Solomon,
Aye.
Jim Terry, aye. Thank you, everyone. Our meeting is adjourned. Oh, Ellen,
Yes.
the meeting next week, next month, if we're going to meet in person, is it going to be at 4 o'clock?
Yes, it would be same time and probably on Kai's Road campus and likely hybrid as well.
Yes, it'll be hybrid. Okay. So people will know it's going to be at 4 o'clock, even though, you know, when we used to have in-person meetings, it was at a different time.
That's right.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.